Amy and Chris's wedding at Roloff Farms looked like a fairy tale on TLC. The network treated viewers to sweeping drone shots of the Oregon property, highlighting the gorgeous rustic setting and the gathered family. It felt like the perfect culmination of a very long and public journey for Amy after her highly publicized divorce. You watch the television special and see the smiling faces, the beautiful floral arrangements, and the custom barn. Everything appears flawless on the screen, but a beautiful wedding photo of the happy couple suddenly burns at the edges when you learn what was actually happening off camera. Behind the scenes, a dark and petty plot was unfolding. Today, we expose the leaked voicemails proving Karen Chandler actively tried to sabotage Amy's big day, and how she was caught red-handed. My read on this entire situation is that the underlying tension between Amy and Karen was never truly resolved. We all watched the strange smiles during family events on television, but this leaked information changes the entire context of that wedding special. I think this goes far beyond standard reality television disagreements. Trying to actively ruin someone's wedding reception crosses a massive line from passive-aggressive behavior into outright malicious sabotage. This video will break down what allegedly happened in the critical 48 hours leading up to the ceremony. We will look at the chilling evidence that surfaced and how Amy managed to outsmart the entire plot without throwing a public tantrum. To fully grasp the weight of this sabotage attempt, we need to talk extensively about the history of the venue itself. Roloff Farms is the emotional center of the Little People, Big World universe. Amy bought that land with Matt decades ago. They built the pumpkin season empire together from the ground up. The property is deeply tied to her identity as a mother and a business owner. When the divorce happened, the division of the farm became the central conflict of the family. Amy living in the main house while Matt lived in a smaller dwelling on the same property created years of awkward television. Eventually, Amy accepted a buyout and moved off the property. The farm became entirely Matt's domain. Because of this history, Matt offering the farm as the location for Amy and Chris's wedding came as a massive shock to longtime viewers. On the surface, the offer looked like a profound peace gesture. For Matt to open the gates of their shared legacy for her to marry another man appeared to be a sign of incredible maturity. Chris Merrick even admitted on camera that he thought the offer was generous and accommodating. Amy was understandably hesitant to accept the proposal. She knew the property intimately because she had raised her 4 children there. Accepting Matt's offer meant stepping back into a space that was now heavily influenced by Karen Chandler. Karen started out as the farm manager before eventually becoming Matt's romantic partner. That transition was incredibly painful for Amy to process in the public eye. Karen took over many of the duties Amy used to handle, including managing the VIP tours during pumpkin season. Returning to the farm to celebrate her new life meant essentially ignoring the awkward reality that her ex-husband and his new partner were the ones holding the keys to her wedding venue. The power dynamic had shifted completely. Amy was no longer the owner. She was just a guest on the land she helped build. There has been extensive online discussion regarding how Karen genuinely felt about hosting the wedding. On television, Matt and Karen presented a very unified and relaxed front. They claimed they were completely fine with not being invited to the ceremony. Matt even joked casually with Chris about crashing the honeymoon. The couple packed their bags and publicly announced they were heading to Arizona for a romantic getaway. They wanted to purposefully give Amy and Chris the space to enjoy the weekend without any lingering awkwardness. That was the public relations narrative they pushed. They wanted to appear unbothered and completely above the family drama. I highly doubt that calm demeanor reflected the reality behind closed doors. The idea of Amy reclaiming the property for a weekend had to be grating on a personal level. Roloff Farms was no longer just Amy's old house. It was the epicenter of Karen's new daily life with Matt. Seeing Amy walk around the grounds, making demands about where tents should go, and acting like the matriarch of the land once again likely struck a very raw nerve. I suspect Karen felt deeply undermined by the whole arrangement. The farm was supposed to be her domain now. Having Amy center stage set the perfect environment for intense resentment to build. The logistics of planning a wedding for over 100 guests are stressful enough without adding underlying family politics into the mix. Catered events on working farms require massive amounts of coordination. Vendors have to navigate dirt roads, set up temporary kitchens, and time their service perfectly. Amy and Chris were busy handling these vendors, managing their guest list, and trying to focus on their relationship. They trusted that the physical space would be ready for them. They also trusted that Matt's promise to step away would be honored by everyone involved. The couple likely never expected that someone would actively work the phones behind their backs to ensure the day fell apart. Let us look closely at what happened just 2 days before the ceremony. The head caterer for the wedding received a frantic phone call. The person on the other end of the line claimed to be Amy's official wedding coordinator. This caller demanded massive, immediate changes to the catering contract. They instructed the caterer to cut the food order entirely in half. They also demanded a completely different delivery time for the meal service. I want to pause and evaluate the pettiness of this tactic. If someone calls a vendor to cancel a wedding entirely, the vendor will usually call the bride or groom immediately to verify something that drastic. Vendors know that total cancellations are rare and require direct confirmation. Adjusting a food order and shifting a timeline sounds very different. It sounds like a panicked, last-minute logistical error made by a disorganized event team. It is the kind of change a vendor might blindly accept if they think they are talking to a frantic event planner trying to fix a budget issue. The goal here was not to stop the wedding from happening at all. The goal was to humiliate Amy in front of her family and closest friends. Imagine the scenario of nearly 150 people sitting down for dinner, and there is only enough food for half the room. Imagine the catering. Staff showing up hours late, leaving guests hungry and confused while the bride looks completely incompetent. It is a psychological attack designed to make Amy feel like a failure on the day she was supposed to shine the brightest. Food is the central social element of any wedding reception. Ruining the meal ruins the mood of the entire evening. The guests would leave early, the memories would be tainted, and Amy would spend her wedding night apologizing to her friends instead of celebrating with her husband. The financial implications of this sabotage attempt are also fascinating to consider. Usually, when someone interferes with a business contract, there is a financial motive, but having a catering bill does not benefit the saboteur in any monetary way. Karen was not saving Matt money by cutting the food order because Amy and Chris were paying for the catering themselves. This lack of financial motive proves that the intent was purely destructive. The goal was to inflict emotional damage and public embarrassment. It takes a very particular type of resentment to risk legal trouble or public exposure just to see someone else fail at hosting a dinner party. The caller almost got away with this malicious plan. The head caterer felt something was slightly off about the interaction. Professional wedding planners usually have a very standard way of communicating with vendors. They use industry terminology and follow established email protocols. The frantic, demanding nature of the call, combined with such a massive reduction in services so close to the event date, raised a major red flag for the catering team. The caterer did not immediately alter the invoice or cancel the food orders. Instead, they waited to see if they would get written confirmation. When the supposed coordinator called back a second time to confirm the sabotage, the caterer let the incoming call go straight to voicemail. That simple decision to ignore the second call changed the entire course of the wedding weekend. The vendor eventually reached out to the actual couple to clarify the bizarre verbal instructions they had received. This communication led to an urgent meeting where Chris Merrick sat down with the catering team. Chris has always been a protective partner. He wanted to understand why a vendor was asking if they should have the food supply. The caterer explained the strange phone calls and played the saved voicemail on speakerphone for Amy and Chris to hear. The voice on the recording was clearly trying to disguise its natural tone. The caller was pitching their voice differently and speaking with a rushed, unnatural cadence. Chris and Amy have spent years listening to this person talk in various settings. They have sat through awkward family gatherings, tense negotiations over the farm property, and endless television production meetings. Chris recognized the voice immediately. It was unmistakably Karen Chandler. I think the emotional impact of that realization cannot be overstated. Amy had already dealt with the long-term trauma of her divorce and the painful reality of Karen stepping into her former life. To sit in a room, days before her wedding, and hear her ex-husband's girlfriend actively trying to ruin her reception had to be sickening. It moves the conflict away from standard reality television bickering into something deeply malicious and vindictive. Karen was allegedly willing to destroy a vendor's hard work, leave innocent guests hungry, and completely ruin Amy's joy out of pure spite. The mechanics of making that phone call show a level of premeditation that is genuinely disturbing. Finding out the name of the catering company requires some effort. Tracking down their contact information, formulating a fake identity as a coordinator, and knowing what changes would cause the most chaos without triggering an immediate cancellation alert shows serious thought. This was a calculated strike against Amy's happiness. The saboteur had to look up the business, practice what they were going to say, and execute the call with enough confidence to trick a professional business owner. I have to wonder what Matt Roloff knew about this plot. I don't have the definitive answer to that question. There is a strong possibility Matt was completely in the dark, believing his girlfriend was packing her bags for their Arizona trip while she was secretly calling Portland catering companies. Matt loves control and being the center of attention, but he usually prefers grand, visible gestures rather than anonymous phone calls. My guess is that Karen acted completely alone. I believe she was driven by a deep-seated frustration about the farm and Amy's lingering presence on the property. We also need to consider Matt Roloff's well-documented obsession with controlling the farm environment. For over 20 seasons, viewers have watched Matt micromanage every single project, from pumpkin patches to pirate ships. He demands total authority over the land. Over time, Karen seems to have adopted this identical mindset. She transitioned from an employee following Matt's orders to a partner who views the farm as her own kingdom. When Amy stepped back onto the property to plan her wedding, she disrupted that newly established power structure. Karen might have felt that interfering with the wedding logistics was a way of reclaiming control over the farm's schedule. If she could dictate when the food arrived, she was still secretly pulling the strings on the property. We also have to ask questions about the TLC production team. Reality television crews are heavily involved in the planning of these broadcasted events. Did the producers know about the voicemail? If they did, it seems they chose to bury the footage to protect the current dynamic of the show. Matt and Karen are central figures in the ongoing series. Showcasing Karen as a malicious saboteur might have alienated viewers too much, ruining the family brand TLC has built over 2 decades. The network prefers passive-aggressive drama, not actual cruelty. I suspect the producers helped sweep the audio recording under the rug to keep the filming schedule intact. We have to look at the other side of this situation and consider alternative explanations. Some viewers have pointed out over the years that the rumors surrounding the Roloff family can get incredibly exaggerated by the internet. There are people who will always take the most charitable interpretation of Karen's actions. The natural defense here would be that the whole situation was a massive misunderstanding. Alternatively, someone might argue that a completely different person made the call. Could a zealous fan or an internet troll have figured out who the caterer was and made the call to cause trouble? Reality television stars deal with unhinged viewers constantly. A troll might think it is funny to impersonate a wedding coordinator just to see what happens. Someone defending Karen would argue that she is far too smart to leave a voicemail. They would say she knows her voice is broadcast on national television every week and would never risk leaving hard audio evidence of sabotage. They might also point to the fact that Karen had already secured her position with Matt. She won the turf war. She had no logical reason to care about Amy's party because she already lived on the farm. There is also the possibility that the caterer themselves misunderstood an instruction from Amy's actual team. The vendor might have panicked over a supply chain issue, and the whole story of the fake coordinator grew out of proportion to cover up a catering mistake. We know how easily a miscommunication can spiral into a massive conspiracy theory when family tensions are already running high. I disagree with how most people frame the troll theory. Trolls usually want immediate credit for their chaos. They want to leak their own pranks to social media to gain followers or attention. A caller targeting the food delivery time with insider knowledge of the guest count feels very much like an inside job. Chris Merrick is known for being a very level-headed and rational guy. He is a professional real estate agent who deals with contracts, stress, and negotiations daily. He is not prone to hysterics or making wild accusations without proof. If Chris listened to that audio and definitively identified Karen's voice, I am inclined to trust his judgment on the matter. He has absolutely nothing to gain by inventing a fake villain 48 hours before his wedding. He just wanted a smooth, happy day for his